Welcome to the Viewless Wings Poetry Podcast, where we celebrate the craft of poetry. Each week, we feature interviews with incredible poets and artists, including Olivia Gatwood and A.E. Stallings, and original poetry read by the authors. I'm your host, James Moorhead, Poet Laureate of Dublin, California, and author of Canvas and Portraits of Red and Gray. On this week's episode of the Viewless Wings Poetry Podcast, we're featuring 5 poems submitted to Viewless Wings focused on images of love. Love poems on greeting cards give poetry a bad name. There are so many beautiful and challenging poems anchored on the theme of love that avoid greeting card clichés. Please enjoy this selection of poems read by the authors.
Hello, Viewless Wings listeners. My name is Lisa Delan. I'm a classical soprano with a focus on American art song, which means that I perform, commission, and record musical settings of the works of great American poets by great American composers. I've recorded extensively for the Pentatone label, and you can find me on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, or other streaming platforms that feature classical music. I love using my musical voice to share the words of these poets who have so moved and shaped me. I have also been writing my own poetry since childhood and have continued to shape my poetic voice. I am delighted that my poetry was recently featured in Beyond Words Literary Magazine, the Mill Valley Literary Review, and Wingless Dreamer, and look forward to being a featured poet in the April edition of Cathexis Northwest Press. And I'm really excited to be here on this Viewless Wings podcast with you. The poem I'm going to read is called The Morning After. I was a very single mom for many years, and when I returned to dating, I found the physicality of intimacy to be particularly revelatory after so many years' absence, when everything felt new. This poem speaks to that experience. The Morning After. Your hands are dew, leaving tiny pearls clinging to my skin. You watch in wonder. You whisper of thirst. Your eyes are quenched. As I walk in the world, no sun glints on my arms. No light returns from the small, moist globes. To the naked eye, I am brushed and matte. But I know I taste of rain, and that each cool drop, paused on each pore, holds the reflection of your open eyes, where I am luminous.
My name is Griffin Epstein. I'm a non-binary white settler from New York City, working in education and community-engaged research in Toronto on Dish with One Spoon territory. I'm the author of So We May Be Fed, a chapbook released in 2021 by Frog Hollow Press, and my poetry has appeared in CV2, Grain, The Maynard, and Plenitude, among others. I also play music, make experimental video games with Shrunken Studios, and develop interactive work with poet Shannon Quinn and multidisciplinary artist Brian Depew. This poem is written for my partner Brian on our 10th anniversary. It's called Poem for Our 10th Anniversary. We slept in the prickly grass by the chain link fence in Silver Spring, ignoring all sound. The shouting frogs, preteens on the basketball court, our own aching muscles, side by side under a tree. I'll make a map of every mangled bird I've ever seen. In Gloucester in summer by the fish factory, on the road near my mother's, or just yesterday in the parking lot when you grabbed my arm to keep me from running into the street. In Pittsburgh, the sky put on a show for us, tossing stars around as flitting bugs, blinking on and off after heavy rain, and we thought maybe the world could be a big green field after all. This is our abundance. All the versions of our lives unfurling in apartments we didn't rent. Still check the mailbox on Greenwood, the porch on Jones. Everywhere we've ever been holds the trace of us. Our tangled hands jammed in each other's pockets, our sneakers in a pile in the dry dirt. This poem was written in a workshop by the brilliant poet and educator Wah Win, and it's called Evening after James Schuyler. The light-up globe my brother wrapped in a baby blanket and sent by mail with no note. The blank face of the clock, pine dresser smelling of pine, old clothes, beeswax in a cold, clear jar. The chimney here grows out of the roof, up from nothing. Our devotion is a blood pressure cuff. Tread tape on the stairs to prevent us carelessly falling. The years we will lay together as seedlings, nosing into each other under the dirt.
Hi, my name is KT Reid. I'm a poet and a writer of fiction and nonfiction. I'm currently working on getting my first poetry collection published, hopefully by mid to late 2023. This piece is titled California Dreamin', and it is inspired by someone I met long ago. I wanted to capture the exact thought process of the moment while keeping it relatable in a contemporary form. So here it goes. California Dreamin'. At first glance, I had no choice but to look her directly in her eyes. Paralysis overcame the lower half of my thighs as I forgot which foot was to step ahead of the other. While concealing my stammered approach, she never noticed my hidden timidity. On the contrary, my guile and sense of style led to her shooting off a quick yet sensual smile. I was shy, I was in love, ready for love. Maybe I was all of the above. I did not care. I just knew that she knew that I knew what we both had originally known, that fetal positions atone for primary senses to be blown for us both after birth. This was the aftermath of being born to be specifically with someone, this me plus her equation equaling better days when we will be forever after. No longer searching and scouring the masses, just passion fruit and molasses and road trips to Calabasas and Big Sur. Fitting her for diamonds, pearls, and mink furs as we lay on Laguna Beach in October while the rest of the country prepares for Game of Thrones. No winter that comes alone could keep us away from each other. No layer of ozone could ever stop the sun from shining brightest on one another. From now until the pearly gates. But before we do bite on to this marvelous wedding cake, I had to ask her, "What's your name?" Thank you.
My name is David Radavich, and the title of my poem is When You Went Missing. About 3 years ago or so, before the pandemic, my wife and I were in Rome together, and somehow in a busy piazza, we got separated from one another, and it was really frightening. We couldn't see each other, and our cell phones did not work there, and we didn't know even what to say to police. So we were lost, but we kept looking, and eventually we got back together. When you went missing. In Rome, I had a habit of getting lost. Which fountain? Which park? You were nowhere to be found. No cell phone that worked, no visage among the villagers, just wandering like mice in the labyrinths, where I could not sing to you, nor yell, nor tell you where or who I am. Still, the ambience was radiant, and we were desperate. Desperate to reunite, to find ourselves again. Eventually, in the milling crowd, you emerged like Venus from the foam. Not naked, but new, in this ancient city of dreams and nightmares, impossibly beautiful spires and sculptures, tantalizing food and drink, now awaiting us in a charming trattoria with checkered tablecloths and a padrone with florid stories and wine like blood given for us.
The Switch, a love poem. This is the author Lawrence Bridges. The Switch. The appetite dropped. My body was a body now. It's yours, not ours. I held you, piété style. I slept, lucid dream. My father died, switched off. I saw him go carefully. He left me switched on. And so I bring to you each day this story where there is no betrayal, a homey feeling with eyes I love, and that's enough. Tall goddesses still exist, and their embrace never loosens, nor my need and reverence. It never slackens, surrounded by sub-goddesses, also tall and moving with rich grace, assigning me a local priestess to see to it I never leave her body, ours, comforting the stressed parts, entering the end of pleasure, which it does. A hero, you could say, awake to fight, sharpening his weapons, switched on at last.
To close this week's episode, I will read a poem that I wrote for my wife, Mary. It's from my book, Canvas Poems. Beauty. I saw beauty beyond a towering cumulus top, storming over verdant hills, caressed by passing gales, and an emerald figure vanishing. I could only watch. I saw beauty resting in dimming light, your head held still on slender palm, stories told with moistened lips, slight and shimmering. I could only listen. I saw beauty in sleep like death, so calm yet breathing still, tucked out of sight in twilight's shadow. I could only feel. I saw beauty deep inside your pupils' ochre rings, passion cloaked by solitude unyielding, rainbow shades I can see but never touch, dreams that awaken me drenched, but I cannot recall, and a whisper in the air so sweet, infectious, pure, that I searched the earth's crevices for just one breath. I saw beauty, and it was you. The Viewless Wings Poetry Podcast is written and produced by James Moorhead. You can follow me on Twitter at Dublin Ranch, subscribe to the Viewless Wings Poetry Podcast, and follow us on viewlesswings.com or on Instagram at Viewless Wings.